Hi, everybody. This is Dan Stolberger. Welcome to this week's The Update. Okay, it's the week of April 18th, and we're looking back over this last week. And if you remember last week, we started with sort of as I see it. And we said that the questions of the day were, are there any hostages still alive? Will Iran strike Israel? Will Israel strike Iran? Will Israel invade Rafah? Will the Biden-Obama administration take down Bibi? What about Hezbollah? Is there a nuclear option now in play? And is Israel standing alone? Interesting, we can kind of check the box of one of those. Yes, Iran did strike Israel. And all of these questions still today are in play. And we're going to do our best to make our way through these events. And so, again, a reminder, you want to make sure that you grab the PDF PowerPoint that accompanies this short YouTube, photos, and always much more information. So you can get that on our YouTube page, which you probably have right in front of you. Should just be a link, or you can go to our website at holygroundexplorations.com. So we always start with our news bites. Of great concern to me is that these chants now of death to Israel or death to America really don't catch us off guard, whether it's in Tehran or wherever it may be. We've heard this before, but when we hear it in America, and when our Democratic representatives refuse to condemn the death to America chant, I think we need to be concerned. And truly, that's what's taken place today. The chants to death to America are being heard right here in America. We have to stand against that. The NBC report, Benjamin Netanyahu has been told by Joe Biden that since the Iranian attack caused such minimal damage to human life and property in Israel, Israel should see this and take this as a win and not respond. Bottom line, that will not happen. We'll talk more about the timing of this response in this update. But it's unbelievable. I wonder if the United States would see successful interceptions above the White House as something that, in a sense, we see it as a victory, or we can make do with this. Let's just take this as a win. The simple truth with the Biden-Obama administration is that it's more concerned about domestic politics right now than it is about Israel's interests whatsoever. Again, Biden's calling Prime Minister Netanyahu, and he wants to kind of be the world manager of all this, finding ways to direct and steer. I know the BBC is saying, what's Biden want to be, the world manager? And then of great concern, obviously, Russia and China, superpowers, as we know. So this week, Putin has reached out, spoken on the phone to the Iranian president, Raisi, and let him know that they're sending them some updated surface-to-air, not just rockets, but air defense systems as well. So Russia's making it clear where their chips are going. And then China, just yesterday, has signed the so-called petition of recognizing Palestine as a state. What times we live in. On a positive note, U.S. House Majority Leader Steve Scalise has called Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and expressed his support for any decision that Israel makes in light of the Iranian attack. So that's our news bites for this week. We'll start with the concept of Israel standing alone. Truth be told, it seems clear that this coalition that came together to assist and help Israel with the Iranian attack is making it clear that they will stand, in Biden's word, ironclad defense, standing behind Israel if Israel's attacked. But, and it's a big but if Israel goes on the offensive, they will be standing alone. And so we have that concept of Israel standing alone. And this article basically says, prior to October 7th, the future seems so bright for Israel. They just had signed the sort of Arab-Israeli peace and normalization agreements. They seem to be on track with adding a seventh agreement with Saudi Arabia. The economy was booming. Tourism was hitting record levels. And Israel is building warm ties with nations and governments all over the globe. But on October 7th, and the war that ensued, it changed everything. Truth be told, Israel is approaching, or some would say is now at its darkest hour since the War of Independence in 1948. The world, as we know it, the pendulum has swung radically the other direction, and the world is beginning to turn against Israel. Indeed, the situation has gone from bad to worse in just a few weeks. And so the question, and this is from Joel Rosenberg in All Israel News, the big question, are Israelis going through just what we would call a bad patch right now, and that their fortunes will brighten once again? Or are we beginning to see biblical prophecies unfolding in which the entire world will be turning against Israel and the Jewish people in the last days? Let's take a look. Let's watch and see. And you will have to determine where you stand. Do you stand with Israel? This is the next article. In light of all that's happening spiritually, geopolitically, in the world today, where is the church? The true followers of Yeshua, of Jesus. What about the pastors and shepherds who read and love to teach the Bible? Will they stand with Israel in this the darkest possibly of hours? Or will they backtrack and begin to abandon Israel? Will they embrace and unconditionally love and protect the Jewish people as anti-Semitism surges? Or will the church flunk this test of history? Well, there were many true Christians, Christian heroes, the righteous among the Gentiles. While there were many during the Holocaust who protected Jewish people and children with great risk to their own lives. And when much of the Roman Catholic and Lutheran Church took the other side of the coin, they failed miserably. Now it seems to be our turn. What will you do in light of what's taken place today? When you stand before God, the God of Israel, by the way, one day soon, I think, what will you say to him? I think this is our great test. And bottom line, actions always speak louder than words. There's an article here that I hope you take the time to read. It was addressed to pastors that are wondering what they should teach or talk to their congregations about regarding Israel. It's a famous sermon that was given in the first half of the 19th century, and it's entitled Israel, God's Dearly Beloved. It was given by a famous Presbyterian Church of Scotland pastor or preacher whose name was Robert Murray McCheyne. Make sure you read it over. And then an article that says Seeking Clarity. And the bottom line here is make no mistake about this. Just like on October 7th, the world responded sympathetically when Israel was attacked. But the minute Israel began to respond, the international community disappeared. The same thing is going to happen here. The world is going to respond sympathetically to Israel with these rockets, 300 plus rockets that have been launched. But for how long? And when Israel does retaliate, which by the way, they will all of that sympathy and support completely dry up? Once again, we'll have to take a look and watch and wait and see. Back to the hostages now. And the question, this article's just entitled 20 with a question mark. A senior Israeli official reported that Hamas, again, after rejecting another hostage release proposal, now says that it will free only 20 hostages in exchange for hundreds of convicted Palestinian terrorists with blood on their hands. And again, this offer comes because they rejected the one that was in place for a 6-week pause for the release of 40 women, children, and wounded hostages. And but the truth be told, there's a speculation that Hamas can't even come up with 20 at this point in time. So what they're asking for now is a 6-week ceasefire, and after the 6 weeks, they'll find 20 to release at that time. The reality, truth, again, be told, we have no idea if there's 20 left. And so the psychological warfare continues on. With Passover coming up, you'll see one of the photos here that just simply is a photo of a tunnel, a terror tunnel, with the phrase, "Let my people go now." Hamas's new proposal, we've just talked about. There's, again, that's why get the PDF. There's so much more information on that. And then Carolyn Glick, I'm a big fan of Carolyn Glick. In her article, she, and this is shocking to me, but I guess shocking and yet not surprising. But she writes about the suicides that have taken place since Nova. And she says that there are now over 50 Nova Music Festival survivors who have committed suicide since October 7th, since the massive evidence that have come out with gang rape and torture and mutilation of victims. Many of the survivors are unable to handle this. And once again, they are taking their own lives in abject depression and fear. And the world seems to continue to be silent. Western elites, from the United Nations to the universities to Hollywood, have been silent, and even worse than that, denying what took place. How should a survivor feel in light of all of that, in light of the indifference and the hatred? And again, the response, they're unable to handle, and the life that were given to them was given to them, they're taking on their own. Over 50. Again, we pray for the peace of Jerusalem. We pray for the wisdom of Jewish leadership and American leadership. We pray that the captives would be set free. And we pray that Israel would come to know Jesus and there would be healing in the land. A couple more. The Red Sea parting is the name of this article. And because of how spectacular the Israeli Defense Forces Iron Dome, David Sling, the laser-guided defense systems, because of how amazing they work together, along with the coalition of countries that assisted, whether it's Saudis or Jordanians or the UK or France or the US. It's easy to sort of shrug our shoulders and think, it wasn't that big of a deal. This article, make sure, I'm going to read it. It says, it was miraculous what took place. The level of success should have never happened. Mordecai Avidbud is a doctor of physics who works for Israeli security. These are his words. When I look at what happened on Saturday night on a scientific level, it should have never happened. It simply could not happen. He explained to have such a high percentage of weapons destroyed would take every element of the process, human, electronic, mechanical. They would all have to work perfectly. He went on to say the likelihood that everything works out just as it should does not exist in complex systems like the defense systems that we were operating, and many of them never having been tested before. Even if we got 90% protection, it would be a miracle. A miracle. What took place here is similar to the parting of the Red Sea. If this is not an act of God, then I no longer know what a miracle is. Wow. Okay, and then the question, pause for Passover. When will Israel retaliate? And God only knows. Truly, that's a true statement. God does know. But it seems like what we're hearing is that Israel is going to play almost like the game of their enemies and pause for a while. Let them sort of think about it and worry about it, much like the 6+ months that Israel's waiting for the captives to be returned. So Israel may or will respond to Iran, but my gut tells me it will probably be after the Passover, this Passover coming week that begins this weekend. With that being said, and I think part of it is because of the expected retaliation of the Iranians. With that being said, I would not be surprised if the Rafah situation, if there's some movement in that area, because the retaliation of Hamas would be minimal in comparison to what the Iranians probably will do. So I see a pause for the retaliation of Iran, but I see some action steps in terms of the situation in Gaza. So that is our report for this week. As I mentioned, I didn't get to everything. I like to try to keep this under 20 minutes. There's some humor at the end of this with some memes and cartoons or whatever. And an article about, of course, the shepherd boy that was, 14-year-old shepherd boy that was killed in the West Bank, Israeli. And again, just reporting today, just an FYI, Hezbollah continues to attack from the north. They hit an area close to the border where between 14 and 18 Israelis were killed. So there's truly an uptick in regards to the proxies of Iran also. So the cauldron is boiling, and however it spills over and when it spills over and what's going to happen, we put into God's hands, because he's still on the throne. He is still in control. But as believers, as I mentioned, actions speak louder than our words. And I never want to minimize the power of prayer. You may say, actions, yes, I get it, but what can I do? Let's start. And some of us, it may be starting and ending with. Others may have other resources to use, but commit yourself to prayer. God bless you, and shalom.